Ferrari in F1 2025 must change speed and do so soon. Updates are required to resolve specific issues and restore performance, a step closer to matching the performance of the Super McLaren and, as a result, being able to fight for podiums and victories with the iconic Woking team over the weekend. Likewise with the challenge versus Red Bull and Mercedes. And at the same time, McLaren is slipping up, the perfect time to strike for Ferrari. And they seem to do so with their upcoming upgrades. Ferrari is preparing for Imola with a massive package of updates. 2 major tipping points will happen during the next month. One of these is undoubtedly the Spanish Grand Prix, where the new constraints on flexible wings will be implemented, perhaps consolidating the group and causing McLaren to take a step back. A FIA oversight might limit the English single-seater's vast operational window. In Imola, both the Prancing Horses and Red Bull will introduce numerous new improvements to remedy the inadequacies of their respective cars. The Reds' revisions will not arrive in Miami since the Florida sprint format involves only one free practice session, which is insufficient to test and validate the legitimacy of the improvements. On the other hand, we understand how difficult it is to assess fresh improvements on the racecourse, an accurate method that must consider numerous parameters, some of which cannot be replicated in a wind tunnel. It is thus necessary to transition from a subjective to an objective evaluation of the track, using data collecting to validate or deny the quality of the job completed. According to the information obtained thus far, the initial modification to the Red will focus on the side pods, where we expect to see a slimming down, an upgrade that should have been planned for throughout the winter. As a result, we should expect the single-seater to evolve naturally over time. In terms of peak speed, the SF25 is not in a poor position, but more quality is clearly required in this essential area as well, in order to stay up with the evolution of other cars and improve further. In addition, the bottom will be modified further. This does not imply that the most recent version should be discarded. However, it is evident that certain changes are required. We're discussing a macro component that is critical to the single-seater's correct operation. The nerve center of ground effect cars, where the SF25 has exhibited excessive sensitivity across the car's gear ranges. This piece frequently fails to function well and does not deliver all of the anticipated load points, which is another area that Ferrari must improve, given that the total amount of downforce is lower than that of the other top teams. The ride's volatility needs to be addressed, which is causing concern among the Red standard bearers. It is doing so notably with Lewis Hamilton, who has yet to discover a clear adaptation to this circumstance. Leclerc himself spoke about it in front of the microphones, maintaining that the overall vertical thrust of the Italian single-seater suffers a deficit that must be filled at the aerodynamic level. And it is precisely on this point that the Monegasque is focusing, believing that by matching the load of McLaren and Red Bull, the pace deficit would be closed. In reality, in Formula One, it is critical to be able to overcome the different issues that limit the single-seater, particularly when it comes to the car's sheer speed. The prospects are there. Nothing is lost for the 2025 racing season. It is required to find a larger and more evenly distributed weight from the bottom. The original version, introduced in Bahrain, helped in this regard, although it was not sufficient, as witnessed in Jeddah. The Red also has some positive aspects, as confirmed by Charles, such as the SF25's degradation management, which is inherited from the progenitor single-seater model, an aspect that remained buried throughout the opening races of the season due to the imposed extreme setups. However, even with this tyre element, there is room for improvement in the thermal cycle, particularly during the flying lap. A step forward in classification sessions is essential, as we have seen how vital it is to start first, especially when overtaking is hindered by turbulent slipstreams. The impact of the most recent news is simply a guess, and we won't know for certain until next week. It appears that the Maranello team is considering further delaying the package of changes for 2 reasons: more time to analyze it and the ability to test it directly in Spain, where the new directive will significantly alter the balance. Meanwhile, McLaren Racing CEO Zak Brown is concerned that one of the team's competitors would be able to erase their lead if they introduce a successful improvement to their car. The next Formula One round will be held in Miami, where McLaren introduced an improvement to their car last year, making it a regular contender for victory and overall fastest car on the grid. Lando Norris claimed his first victory of the season that weekend, putting McLaren on track to win the Constructors' Championship. So far this year, the team has capitalized on its lead by winning 4 of the first 5 Grands Prix. However, Brown highlighted that their margin of victory was narrow at the last round in Jeddah and feels the competitive landscape might alter fast. "I think you saw, 4 teams there within 5 seconds in a flat-out race," Brown was quoted as saying. "There was no safety car that bunched everyone back up." Sunday's race was not quite as close. The first 4 cars were separated by 9 seconds, but that included both McLarens, and 4th place Mercedes were 27 seconds behind at the finish. However, Red Bull, McLaren, and Mercedes were all within 1/10 of a second of each other in qualifying. "So, I kind of feel like everyone's just one upgrade away from being that lead car," Brown continued. "You saw what we did last year from Miami. Probably the lead was bigger this time last year with Red Bull, and yet they finished 3rd in the championship. So we're well grounded in the reality of how quickly the sport can change." Many predicted that the Jeddah Grand Prix would be the ideal circuit to put McLaren under pressure and exploit a track where the MCL39 should have performed poorly. According to George Russell, on circuits where they are strong, they can dominate. On circuits where they are weak, they still fight for pole position and victory, referring to the events in Suzuka and later Jeddah. 2 tracks that, due to conditions, asphalt, and kind, have allowed their opponents to enter the fight, although Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri remain quite competitive. In Saudi Arabia, however, not everything went as planned, confirming Andrea Stella's fears of a fierce competition and the necessity to accomplish everything correctly over the course of the weekend are critical for a successful outcome. It was evident from the outset of the season that the MCL39 had World Championship potential. Red Bull has yet to fix its problems. Mercedes has made a major but insufficient step ahead. And Ferrari is plagued by the problems of a too revolutionary and ambitious project that is currently not bearing fruit. Oscar Piastri took the title lead after a magnificent performance, including a start that saw him overtake Max Verstappen in true champion style. The penalty imposed to Verstappen was hotly discussed, but it didn't change the reality that McLaren no longer had the pace advantage it once did. Lando Norris, despite being quicker in practice, struggled in qualifying. He paid the price in the race, getting caught in traffic and losing valuable time fighting a defensive Hamilton. McLaren's much-anticipated diffuser modification was discreetly scrapped following free practice. The choice not to race with it, although being described as a test item, raises a red flag. With the development curve flattening throughout the field, McLaren's opponents see a chance. Ferrari and Red Bull are prepared to strike. Imola and Spain will be crucial. One thing is clear, the fight is about to get spicy. So, what do you think? Will Ferrari be able to create an upgrade worth their time? And will McLaren fall back now that the new upgrades don't seem to work properly on their car? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below.